All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Going to be jumping into the top prop bets on PrizePicks today for Flush Friday. Let's go ahead and get into it. So today is going to be a pretty interesting day. We are getting a bunch of good MLB over hitting fantasy score prop bets, which is interesting. We'll touch on that. And we also are getting some interesting spots just in the NBA as well, with Darius Garland expected to play in tonight's game, which does shift some of the players that we could potentially be on there as well. So we'll be touching on all that in this video. But first, I do want to start with just a quick update that I made to the 9 to 5 MLB tab. So if you guys are in the MLB tab, it's going to be set to standard prop bets. I did go ahead and add in these Goblin and Demon tabs. What it's going to do is it's going to pull in the percent likelihood for a Demon bet to hit. Now, if we ever get a Demon bet where it's a 50% likelihood to hit, that is considered a good bet because, well, that's just, it should never be that case. You know, typically speaking, the PrizePicks lines are based off of a 50-50 split. But this should kind of just go to show you just the likelihood for some of these bets to hit or not hit, okay? Because the best one that we have Demon bet-wise is going to be a 42.5% likelihood for the over to hit, which is obviously the only bet that we can make there. So I did want to call that out. What it's going to be is the average sportsbook line is going to be the standard line. And so we can compare like hits allowed. They're just giving him an extra, well, hit and a half, essentially like 6 hits, which is obviously a decent amount more than 4.5 with if he gets the over, obviously. From there, we can take a peek at like Goblin prop bets. Goblin prop bets, guys, honestly, just don't use them. I've been over this a bunch. They're not worth it in the long term, in the short term, but this does break down the percent likelihood for these bets to hit. And so what's going into this, just as an FYI, is I'm just directly taking the sportsbook odds from like DraftKings, BetMGM, FanDuel, and whatnot, and obviously just applying the percent likelihood for those bets to hit based off of the no-vig, the juice line for that specific line. Okay, so it's just a direct comparison to that line, which is what we are doing with the standard prop bets that we are getting. But let's go ahead and jump on into some of the standard prop bets because we are getting a bunch. You know, typically speaking, we can just look at where the data correlates, and we're getting so many good over fantasy score prop bets. And if we are maybe chasing some of these over fantasy score prop bets, let's just do games maybe where the run total could be a little bit higher to like maybe decide where we want to go with these. And so let's just do 9 for a run total with a bare minimum to maybe reduce it down a little bit here. Okay, so we got Christopher Morel for over his hitting fantasy score, projected to get 6.8. We got Junior to get over 5 for his fantasy score, Christian Yelich. In comparison to Underdog, we can see that that's a pretty good line. And then Contreras as well in that same game, so a little bit of a stack there. Joey Ortiz, and so we're getting a decent amount in that game that we could potentially stack there for some overs, again, in a high-scoring game, which is a route that I don't mind going. Now, one of the few additions or updates that PrizePicks has made recently that I like, because I haven't liked a lot of them, is this simple game pull-up tab where we can search by the Tampa Bay-Milwaukee game, and obviously we are getting some good prop bets in this game, so let's just kind of scroll through it. So we got Christian Yelich for over his hitting fantasy score. We do notice he's been on a little bit of a slump, but again, expected to be a high run total, so we like that aspect of it. Contreras has well been a little bit more consistent, but, you know, don't hate that. We got Junior in that same game. You know, he just went off in his last game, maybe a cool down. Joey Ortiz for over his 4.5 hitting fantasy score. So a decent amount of stack and opportunities again here where I don't mind going that route, and then Morel as well for his over hitting fantasy score as well. Now, the issue with doing this is that you can really only do 4 of the players because once you add in that 5th player, it actually reduces the payout, which again is stupid. It shouldn't be happening. If you add a slip in, it should never decrease the payout likelihood, but I did want to call that out. If we go ahead and just take a peek at just all of them, again, we do have Jordan Walker for over his hitting fantasy score, Andrew McCutchen, Jeff McNeil as well. So we are getting some decent edges for all of these lines. What I find very interesting about this Jordan Walker line here is that they do have it set at 4.5. Okay. It's interesting because we do see that he is likely to get a hit, 0.5. Now, they do have his hits, runs, RBIs at 0.5 as well, okay, which we don't like that aspect of it as a Goblin prop bet. But the line is set at 1.5. He's likely to get under 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs, but that is the true line that we're getting there, and that's why they have this set at 0.5. And so the fact that we're getting his hits there as well, he's already there at 3. Okay, so then he just needs to do something else the rest of the game. He needs to get a walk, a run, RBI, stolen base would obviously be great. If he gets a double, he gets there right away. And so it's just an interesting line. And that's kind of the theme that we have here today. I'm not exactly sure why they're doing this today versus any other day. It's definitely something new that they're trying out, I think, like Jeff McNeil as well. Basically, if he gets a hit, we're sitting pretty good. Let's take a deeper look at this one as well. And so again, same thing with him. Basically, there's that same situation. Very likely to get a hit based off of this line being a goblin. Also, very likely for him to get, hit, run, or RBI as well. And so again, it's just a strange thing that they're trying out here where, yes, he is likely to get under 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs, which is the standard line that we're getting on the day. But it's also strange that they're giving us a hitting fantasy score of 3.5. And that is kind of the fine line, though, of these fantasy score lines, just as an FY, is it has to be formulated the way it is, where I'm reflecting his likely to get basically 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs, which is the standard line. And he's likely to get 5.3 based off of that, which is what the projection data agrees with as well. That is the interesting part about these bets for hitting fantasy score prop bet. We do see basically a 50-50 split for him to get over or under 5.3. So worth calling that out. And I do want to go ahead and just get into some of the general bets that we have popping up on the board as well. Ty Jerome for under 4.5 field goals made. Definitely an interesting one when you look at it, just because Darius Garland is expected to play into tonight's game. Evan Mobley still questionable as well, but he went through shoot around. All the players that are questionable for Cleveland went through shoot around. So that typically suggests they're closer to playing than not playing. But again, Garland is expected to play. So with that, Ty Jerome's minutes are down to about 19 projected minutes, which is what he does average. And so if that does play out, his under 4.5 field goals made seems like a pretty darn good bet. Another interesting one in this game, Miles Turner's line is certainly popping up. Miles Turner for under 4.5 field goals made as well. That kind of points to me that Evan Mobley's probably going to play. That's kind of how I'm reading into that. Russell Westbrook for under his fantasy scores, another one that's popping up. But a very interesting one that I want to call out specifically for underdog purposes actually is Jamal Murray for under his fantasy score of 38. Okay, so this is off really by 3 compared to the average sportsbook line. And compared to the PrizePicks line of 36, that is pretty high. And so that's a pretty darn good underdog bet there for his under. Again, we are getting plenty of decent bets here, guys. A lot of bets that we could go ahead and toss out. And so I'm just going to go through and kind of find which bet I like the most via the 9-to-5 slipped optimizer, and that'll be the 9-to-5 bet of the day. But first, I do want to call out the Underdog promo code, guys. If you guys are looking for an Underdog bet, which I'm about to give you guys, and you guys want to use the promo code, that does not go unnoticed there. Use the promo code 925 spelled out, or click the link in the description below to get the best deal that they currently have going. And I do want to call out the promo code for PrizePicks. I'm assuming most of you guys have already used that, or obviously if you're watching the video, you're probably already signed up for PrizePicks. But the promo code is 9TO5. Use that as well. It's just a simple, easy way to top out the channel. But yes, looking at that, guys, we do have, to me, a pretty good bet. And it's kind of funny. So, like, this is the bet of the day for Underdog today. And it's funny to me because we had a similar one a couple nights ago. It was the opposite, where we were betting the over or the under on PrizePicks for like Jalen Brunson, and then Cal Raleigh as well, where we're actually betting the over for him on PrizePicks. Now today it's going to be the opposite here on Underdog. A very similar fashion though, with the under fantasy score for Jamal Murray, where it's a little bit too high on Underdog. That's one that I called out. And then Cal Raleigh, if you look at his PrizePicks fantasy score, it's at 5.5. That should not be happening, guys. So big prop line difference as well. And then for the Frux Friday slip, there's kind of 2 routes that you can go today. You can either do this game stack where you are betting on that high run total. If that high run total does end up hitting, then the game stack works. Remember, you can only do 4, maybe even only 3 prop bets. When you start to add in that 5th prop bet, it really does decrease the payout. And if you're already doing a flex slip bet, that's already going to decrease the payout as well. So did want to call that out. Or we could just place a 6 slip bet based off the top, 6 bets that I kind of like as well. Obviously, you can pick whichever bet slip you guys like the most via the slip optimizer there. That is available for 9-to-5 site members. Again, kind of interesting here with these lower fantasy score lines that we are getting for hitting fantasy score for MLB. We'll test that out, see how those go. We haven't really gone that for these batters that are, batting later in line. It's pretty much where they're not as much of a lock or anything like that to get 4 at bats, which is typically a number I like to try to get to a decent amount. Then Ty Jerome, probably a bet that's going to get bumped, but there is risk with that. Again, same thing with Turner, where if Mobley plays for really both of them, well, if Mobley plays, Ty Jerome, that probably helps that bet. But if Mobley plays, I guess that also helps the Miles Turner bet as well. But the issue is Darius Garland and Evan Mobley being questionable as well. So if Mobley ends up playing and Garland sits, then the Ty Jerome prop bet is actually probably a good over bet. And so that's kind of the issue that we have, because he would get more minutes then. So that's kind of the issue there. But I am expecting Garland to play as well in this. That's going to do it for this video, guys. Make sure to give a like and subscribe to the channel. If you guys want access to the tools that you saw in this video, head on over to 9to5sports.com. Get access to those tools for just $10 a month. Thank you for watching. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.